New Life Plus, Young Again in Another World, anime's protagonist and novel creator caused controversy. The announcement of the television anime adaptation of Mind's New Life Plus light novel series is causing a controversy among Chinese and Japanese speaking net users. Twitter user at Sonmi China, whose Twitter bio describes him as a Chinese person born in Japan, described the controversy in a series of tweets on Thursday. The Twitter user explained that the original light novels center on a Japanese protagonist who killed more than 3,000 people with the Japanese sword in the Second Sino-Japanese War, a conflict between China and Japan that ran from 1937 to 1945 and became part of World War II. After living to the age of 94 and killing another 2,000 people throughout the course of his life, the character gets reborn as an 18-year-old man in another world. Now, let me first start by saying, literally, the only reason that there's controversy over this is because Japan was part of the Axis powers and lost the Second World War. I mean, 3,000 people is a lot. And then an additional 2,000, it's a lot, sure. But it only matters because Japan lost the war. And they don't have the moral high ground.
Did people forget that freaking Tanya the Evil's based on this, like, not exactly. Nazi, but...
So that's one thing that's worth bringing up. There are plenty of anime series where they follow Nazi and all this stuff. The difference is that this is the protagonist. So it's the hero, right? Now, personally, I think that it's really easy for people to look with their modern lens of living in the age that they live in right now and look back and cast moral judgment against things that happen relating to the past. I think it's very stupid for people to do that, and it's so easy for people to do that, and I don't think they should. Now, let me say real quick, though, I have not read this novel. I had literally never heard of it until this controversy happened. I'm not trying to defend mine. I don't know who this person is. I don't know anything about them. I'm just saying that from this perspective here, and everything I'm going to say about this is based on the evidence that I have seen and what I do know. And
no bias,
any extra stuff, like if somebody vehemently disagrees with anything that I say here and you want to present new evidence to me, I'll look at it and you might change my mind. But so far from what I've seen, I think that this is a gross overreaction about something that's totally unimportant and really stupid.
But what about like every single show that goes into the Sengoku period and has Oda Nobunaga in it and stuff like that?
So in that time, the Oda Nobunaga stuff is all that's warring within Japan. Those are clans in Japan. See, the difference here is that it's against an outside nation and it's coupled with something else that we're about to talk about. Okay. So some net commenters believe it is inappropriate to make an anime centering on a character who killed thousands of Chinese people during a real world historical event. On the other hand, some commenters said that the more than 3,000 victim figure is an exaggeration and the story is a work of fiction, so making an anime about such a fictitious story is not problematic. However, other commenters said that using such a hyperbolic figure still demeans China, especially in light of many real casualties of war. Bullshit. There are casualties on both sides. It doesn't matter.
They don't like the History Channel, do they?
No. So the issue here, what I'm getting at, is, like I said, Japan lost the war, and the thing is that China, though they were communist and not technically our allies, they continued fighting. They're like the only East Asian country to continue fighting against the people who are also our enemies during basically the entirety of World War II. It's literally the only reason there's controversy over this is because they were seen as being on the side of the victors, even though Mao killed 100 million people. Anyway, online commenters are also criticizing Mine, the author, for more than the content of his light novels. At Sonmi China posted images of Mine's tweets from 2013 to 2015 that appear to criticize China. At Sonmi China describes the tweets as, quote, hate speech toward China. In addition to expressing controversial opinions, the tweets refer to China as, quote, bug country, using kanji characters that may have the same pronunciation as the word China in Japanese. Additionally, at Sonmi China posted images of Mine's tweets from 2012 to 2014 that appear to contain anti-Korean sentiments and similar derogatory euphemisms for the country of South Korea. Many online commenters agree with Sonmi China's opinion that adapting New Life into an anime is inappropriate. At Somi China believes companies associated with the production showed poor judgment, and the Twitter user wants people to consider the feelings of Chinese people who like Japanese anime. First of all, get off your high horse with this line right here. Believes companies associated with production showed poor judgment. Do you really think that they actually looked through his tweets from 2012 to 2015?
And thought, let's
saw
not
it
make
and
an
said,
anime
you know
now.
what? Yeah, we're definitely going to make this guy's anime. We endorse every single thing this guy's ever said, and we're definitely aware of it. Bullshit. So these are the tweets that were compiled of what he said about China. Okay. And again, these are really rough. Like the way that Japanese people speak should not be translated directly because it makes no sense to an English speaker. But he said, old fart from the bug country on TV. We have a legitimate need to defend our country and you're pursuing. Are you serious? The history of Japan is being lost to that bug country, though I suppose there is no certainty. The blast and the bugs are already in China. This is an ironclad fact. I have to laugh. Though we love peace, why does the world hate China? Sad. This surprised me. I didn't know that the Chinese knew the word morality. Comfort in learning. High school students are sent to visit U.S. sister cities. I don't even have the smallest I don't understand a word this guy's saying here, half of them. Now, let me point this out. So, first of all, what his quote-unquote hate speech is literally what he did is, okay, so in Japanese, China is Chugoku, and Korea is Kankaku, I believe. So literally what he did is the equivalent of the elementary school bully who takes your name and turns it into an insult. Okay, this is My Hero Academia when Bakugo calls Midoriya Deku. That's what this is. That's literally what he did. So he is upset with how a country is handling something. Now, let me point something out right here. After 9/11, particularly during 2003, when they were gearing up to go to war in Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11, but we did it anyway. The news, like MSNBC, was owned by GE, who had the jets and stuff that were going to profit off of it. So there's a reason behind it, but they repeated that mantra of weapons of mass destruction. They defamed the Middle East, Arabs, Muslims, all that stuff non-stop during that age. Okay. I knew people who constantly referred to Muslims and Arabs and people in the Middle East as ragheads, as desert monkeys and sand N-word stuff I don't want to say on here, all sorts of horrible things. But in reality, because first of all, as Jim Morrison put it, he who controls the media controls the mind. This is, interpretations of the things and manipulating people into believing that you have an enemy because it's profitable, right? From what I've heard about these guys' tweets, seems to me like probably there was some sort of controversy happening in the news that he was commenting on and is upset with the other country. But in reality, just like with the people I grew up, hearing these horrible, hateful things, calling people ragheads and all these things. In reality, if in America, somebody from Pakistan was to walk up to them in a class environment or something, they wouldn't be hateful at all to him. They'd be like, no, this guy's cool. In reality, people are not actually hateful to the people. This is the difference between hating the country's government versus hating the country's people. See, here's the thing. He's linking articles. He's linking news articles. This is my point, is that these are news things that I feel like we're riling this guy up, because I've seen this happen in the States on any given issue over here. They get riled up by the hatred spewed by the talking points in the media. So that's basically what he's doing. You guys can read the rest of these. They're all basically the same. I didn't see anything that really I thought was a big deal. I think the guy was definitely wrong, but again, it's like he's posting articles and it's just everything I said before. So continuing, New Life creator apologizes for controversial tweets and novel content. So in light of the upcoming anime adaptation of Mind's New Life light novel, some depictions in the series and some of Mind's comments on Twitter created a controversy. Certain net commenters believe the original work in Mind's post contained inappropriate content, insults, and discriminatory remarks directed at China and South Korea. Commentators stated that they believe the decision to adapt Mind's novels into an anime was inconsiderate and inappropriate. Now, real quick, actually, something I meant to mention earlier that I do think is worth noting is that if this guy did write these tweets and stuff while he's writing this story, it is actually quite likely that the mindset he was in, because again, this is adapting into a world of fiction, the feelings you have in real life. It is possible that he specifically chose to write this story as a way to vent out some of the frustration from whatever he was being triggered by on the news regarding China by writing it into his story. It's possible. Okay.
Right.
So I do want to point out the validity of the claim that he might have. Again, I don't think it's racist. You know, I really don't think it has to do with race. I think it has to do with like countries, governments and stuff, you know, and I think there's a very big difference in people actually, you know, disliking a group of people based on their nationality versus disliking the crap that their government does. Like nobody, if I badmouth North Korea, I mean, which is kind of a weird thing to do right now, particularly given what's happened in the last 2 weeks. But if I badmouth North Korea, you know, like a month ago, you would know that I'm not badmouthing the people of North Korea, obviously, right? That I'm actually badmouthing the government, the dictatorship, all that kind of crap. You know what I mean? It's obvious, but this is a way of choosing to be mad at the decisions made by this guy, you know, which again, I don't think were the right decisions. I think that he should have reined it in a little bit, but, Mine responded to the controversy and issued an apology on Twitter on Tuesday. In the first of a series of tweets, he said, regarding some of my past tweets, I made many people feel extremely uncomfortable, and I give my deep apologies for writing inappropriate remarks. He said he is deeply reflecting for posting without accurately understanding all the facts and without giving deep thought to his words. Mine added that he does not expect to receive forgiveness from the people he upset, but he wanted to give a heartfelt apology. In addition to deleting all his tweets, Mine plans to delete his Twitter account in the near future after the apology spread. With regard to New Life, Mine noted that his poor writing and rash remarks as a result of recognizing the inappropriate content in his work. Mine will discontinue offering the novels on Shosetsuka ni Naro. He plans to discuss with the publisher about possibly correcting the relevant print versions of the novels. Nothing you change in the novel is going to make the people who are rallying against you do anything different.
Yeah.
The apology is not going to stop them. Nothing is going to stop them. You could literally change the story so that instead of being a soldier who fought in combat against people and slayed 3,000 people and then an additional 2,000 people, you could make him a Buddhist pacifist. It will not change anything in how people feel. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. Shipments halted. Now, I don't want to jump to conclusions here. Okay? This is somebody's interpretation of what they saw put into the article. And I'm not sure if, I think there's a possibility that what they're interpreting might be misleading unintentionally. So it says here that the shipments were halted. Now, this is regarding the actual print copies of the light novels. That could mean that they have recalled them, as they said that he had asked Hobby Japan to allow him to change up future printings, to rephrase some, like they're going to make a new edition that is going to not be quote unquote hateful to China or something like that. Right. So I don't know if this has been a complete shutdown. The fervor over the hyperbolic choice of calling it quote unquote hate speech, I think has done so much damage that this guy's not going to work again. But there's a silver lining in this stuff. I had to read these articles last night to prepare for the podcast just to make sure I really knew what I was going to be talking about. And I laughed my ass off at the next two articles. Yamakan angrily blames Otaku and China for New Life anime cancellation. Outspoken anime director Yutaka Yamamoto took to Twitter again with a tirade against a new target, the cancellation of the New Life Young Again in Another World anime following the original author's discriminatory remarks against China and Korea. I'm mad at the cancellation, he said, and added, now all it would take is one blow to destroy anime. First of all, that is the most real thing I've read in a long time. He is right on the money with half the stuff he says here. Okay? Now, Yamakan said several times on Twitter and in a blog post on Thursday that he thinks otaku are to blame for ruining anime. When the cancellation news broke, he tweeted the hashtag the day otaku ruined anime. He claims this is as he predicted, and he further predicted that the industry will fall to disorder because otaku have too much power over the industry. Now, real quick, I'll just say he's not wrong. But I think that what has actually caused the cancellation is not quote unquote otaku. It's outrage culture that happens in this case to be where it overlaps into the otaku. Right. I think that the word otaku is grossly overused. You have to understand that in Japan, this is a derogatory term. Otaku is like the 30-year-old living in their mother's basement in Japan. Okay. So in the United States and in the West, though, people use this as a badge of honor they just say like, yeah, it means I like anime. I totally like anime. I'm a total otaku. It's not really what it means. I don't ever use this term to describe myself, just for the record. Now, I'm okay with other people doing it. I'm just saying that personally, I don't. Okay. And I'm just telling you what the term means in Japan. It's fine if you want to continue to use it. But I'm just saying here that when he refers to otaku, if I'm going to clarify his statement to the interpretation I think is more accurate, would be that it's the outrage culture. And it just happens to overlap in this case with a large group of otaku as well that are responsible specifically for the cancellation. But I do think that he is right when he says that, as he predicted, the industry will fall to disorder because otaku have too much power over the industry. And I'll just recall back to that thing that happened with, which is not necessarily the same as the quote unquote anime industry, but what happened with Voltron. Wasn't there like death threats over queer fans wanting them to make this gay relationship canon or something like that? And they had like death threats going on against the creators for like, you better do this or else kind of, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? So every fandom has assholes in it who are going to do stuff like that. Now I got to continue reading this because this article I love this article. So it's one of my favorite articles I've ever read. He characterized otaku as being too flippant about the state of the industry and unable to realize that it affects them. He mentions that even when there were directors leaving projects last year and now series getting canceled, otaku don't realize what the issues are because they only look to anime as a form of escapism and don't care about it as a medium. Now, just real quick, this guy is dissatisfied with the direction anime has taken because when he got into making anime, let's say, and I'm just gonna make a wild guess here rather than actually getting it accurate, but just to get the point across, let's say he got into anime when they were animating things like Akira, and now they're animating things like real moe and stuff, and he's really dissatisfied with moe, as we'll talk about in a second. So anyway, Yamakan also said that he wants to, quote, to go to China and have a talk with people there, but he was quick to try to clarify his statement in a blog post. Honestly, I have a resentment against some Chinese people, he said, and claimed he got in an argument with a Chinese extremist and ended up banned from entering China. But at the same time, there are lots of people from China who understand, and there are a lot of fans. So basically what he's saying is you got to judge people as individuals and recognize that what I sort of just said about fandoms, that there are some assholes in every fandom, right? And people who don't understand and just want to raise a loud voice and cause controversy and stir the pot. He lamented that he was being attacked by Chinese people, stating that all he was trying to do was criticize otaku nationalists for spreading hate against China and Korea. He blames both Japanese otaku nationalists and Chinese extremists for the series cancellation and imagines himself as in the middle of both groups and subject to both sides' ire. If I'm criticizing the neo-nationalist otaku who are spreading hate, I get attacked from behind by Chinese people. It happened again today. It's really terrible, but it's not tied to my resentment toward all Chinese people, which I think he meant like I don't have resentment towards, quote, all Chinese people. I think that this is just poorly worded. He wrote, is it so hard to have these discussions with common sense and reason, but no hysterics? Which I think, like, God, that's the understatement of the goddamn year, right? In the post, he referred back to a previous blog entry from May 30th, where he posted a reply he'd received that parodied Martin Niemöller's poem, First They Came For. That's the one that says, first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out, for I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, I did not speak out, for I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out, for I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Right. And this is about the Germans not recognizing the Nazis' rise to power. And the poem was rewritten to begin with, first otaku attacked Yamakan. Right. Anyway, Yamakan's other tweet suggested he believes the cancellation is in part related to business interests of the production committee, a system he is critical of. Yamakan has previously made discriminatory remarks. This is the part that made me laugh my ass off last night. Some he apologized for. He characterized older otaku as disabled. In 2016, he declared moe as fascist and anime is dead. Whew. Understand, this is something that is going to grossly change how you view everything he said. This guy is the director of The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya and Lucky Star. Now think back to what happened when those shows came out. When he criticizes otaku as being disabled, think about what happened when those shows came out. Both of them had a dance number that became ridiculously popular. And in the case of Lucky Star, all over 4chan, like 38-year-old neckbeards were buying the Bandai special editions that came with the shirts that had like the school uniform and basically cosplaying and wearing those things as the girls in the show with the caption, "Am I kawaii desu?" This poor guy has been part of show, like literally, like I said, if he came into the anime industry animating things like Akira, and now he's dealing with the fandom as they are now, I totally understand his entire point. Now, I just want to clarify. I don't know. I kind of already sort of got through this with what I just said about those shows he worked on regarding the disabled comment. But this is the thing here. This was a hyperbolic statement they just put forth about him calling moe fascist, because that's not actually what he said. He feels that moe is, quote, becoming fascist in the sense that its depiction is controlled by unwritten rules. Don't show panties. Showing panties is in line with male desires, so let's show them. Yamamoto refers to operate by his own rules, but gets criticism when he does so and claims he can't handle the times. So this is the last one, okay? Eta Nosara, manga artist, blames Hobby Japan and human rights for New Life cancel. This is a pretty hyperbolic statement, isn't it? Human rights are responsible for the cancellation? That's not what this guy is saying. I understand that the anime New Life was canceled, but to stop publishing the novels is awful, seriously dangerous, hella scary, and I'm afraid I can't say things on Twitter. It's a dystopia. I'm shaking, they wrote. Seriously, though, people's lives are being ruined by this almighty bludgeon known as, quote, human rights. I'm less afraid of a flag for communism than a bludgeon for human rights, they wrote. So the almighty bludgeon known as human rights. I'm going to change this word, and you tell me if this makes sense now. The almighty bludgeon known as Antifa. Okay, so what he's saying by human rights, he's not actually saying that humans shouldn't have rights. What he's saying is that people are using the excuse of, quote, human rights or, quote, hate speech or, quote, racism to slander and destroy people who did something relatively minor, right? And this is the problem with political correct speech, is that it polices people's speech to the point where everything they say seems insincere because people don't actually talk that way. And it makes it so that comedians can't actually tell jokes anymore because everybody, at least one person in the audience is going to be offended and shut down the whole thing. Masao Shiro's Twitter account was suspended after using a derogatory slur towards Japanese people while jokingly recommending his own manga for adaptation. This was a joke. Oh my freaking God, I can't believe people. He used a specific term, jokabari. It's a derogatory Korean term used towards Japanese people. His freaking manga uses this term. It was a signal to fans of his work. It would be like somebody, now I'm not saying this is a good joke or that this is a good comparison, but it would be like somebody using Mokori from City Hunter, using that term in a controversy about maybe sexual harassment or something like that, you know? Okay, so it was clearly a joke, but it's a joke that only fans of his manga actually got, and everybody else just buried him. So you guys can read this if you actually want to get a little more on it, but that's what actually happened. I don't think the guy who made New Life, this guy Mine, I don't think he should have said what he said. The same way I don't think that the people I knew growing up were right calling, you know, Arabs ragheads and all the things that they learned from watching Fox News and MSNBC and all those other things that were just really trying to get us to war in Iraq back then. I don't think that they were right in saying that. But again, it's real easy to look at things from 2018 and look at things from the moral compass the world has now and shame things that were said 5-10 years ago for being in a different time because you're viewing them from the modern lens. The next article we get to talk about, which I think is going to wrap up exactly why I'm so upset about everything. Rurouni Kenshin Hokkaido arc does not return in Viz's Shonen Jump. So in America, the Hokkaido arc is not going to return. But in Japan, after manga author Nobuhiro Watsuki was charged with possession of child porn last year and paid a fine of less than $2,000, free to continue making manga, free to continue making money. It's unbelievable to me that a guy who barely said anything on Twitter had his anime canceled, and a person in possession of child pornography is able to continue doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where are you, Twitter hate machine?
It's a mad world out there.